I am sure you have heard about 3D printing everyday stuff, but how about 3D printing an entire rocket? When you think of space, NASA or other space agencies probably come to your mind. And of course, lately, it is Elon Musk who has been revolutionizing the industry with SpaceX. But this video has nothing to do with any of these names. This is about Tim Ellis, who is the CEO of Relativity Space and their innovative 3D printed rockets. How does something like this even work? I am sure there are thousands of questions that come to mind, so let's just get started right away. Before we begin though, please consider subscribing to our channel. So 3D printed rockets, huh? Relativity Space says that they are looking to revolutionize launching rockets and the entire process behind it. As you can imagine, they have also managed to build the largest 3D printers in the world, which was a must if something like this was to be done anyway. But you are probably curious about the printing process itself, as in, how the hell do they manage to print a rocket? Is it done in one go so that we should have a rocket getting printed starting from the top and finishing at the bottom? Well, not really. The printing process is done in steps. They print as big as 20 feet structures, which are then put together. But the interesting part is that the entire process takes about 60 days. Now that might sound like a huge number, but it really is not. We are talking about the process of converting all raw materials into the final product, a rocket which is ready to fly off. If we talk about the same process in a traditional setting, for example, making a rocket from scratch the regular way, we are looking at a time of 2 to 3 years. So there is this huge difference between the amount of time required to develop these rockets. So it is much faster. But what else? Tim Ellis, the CEO of Relativity Space, describes it as automating the entire process, which makes a lot of sense. Think of it like this. A rocket will have about 100,000 individual components in a traditional setting that would essentially need to be pieced together. They equate to tens of thousands of suppliers providing different materials and components for the production. Of course, efforts are made to ensure that the work done in the factories is efficient, but it is usually worse than it looks. With these 3D printed rockets, however, there are only about 1,000 components, and all are 3D printed right under one roof. So it is safe to say that quality can be ensured as well. Another important question that often crosses our mind is, if all of these parts essentially pop out of a single type of printer? That is obviously not true. They do not really use the same printer or even the same type of printer to produce the outer layers as they would for the internal ones. Each printer has different characteristics that are suitable for a different sort of component. Tim Ellis was actually asked this question in an interview, and he just excitedly mentioned their largest 3D printer, which is also the largest 3D printer in the world. It is called Stargate, which was actually named after StarCraft. This beast produces items as huge as 36 feet tall, which is just absolutely massive, considering the average size of the 3D printed products we see. It is also interesting how this whole company even started. Of course, we have had 3D printing for a while now, and it's become a huge industry at this point. But who even came up with the idea that they should pursue printing objects as huge as these? Tim Ellis, the CEO, met the co-founder at USC, and that too at a student group called USC Rocket Lab. Rocket Lab was not messing around either, as they were the first student group in the world to have launched a rocket into space, so they were definitely onto something. After that, Tim got a job at Blue Origins, and Jordan went on to join SpaceX. Interestingly enough, both their jobs coincided with the aspect of 3D printing. Jeff Bezos was inculcating 3D printing within Blue Origins, while SpaceX was also 3D printing the Super Draco engine. This got them thinking that something like this was definitely the future. The way they saw the technology improving and evolving made sure that a 3D printing future is nothing but inevitable. Tim also talked about going to Mars and humans colonizing other areas outside the Earth. According to him, Relativity Space will be a huge factor for something like that if humans' access has to be expanded. They believe that something like colonizing Mars, for example, is only possible through 3D printing. And obviously they were hell-bent on getting ahead of the market. It will not be wrong to say that they have already made a significant impact on the industry, as these names are taken along with that of NASA and SpaceX. Of course, when the company started out, its priorities surrounded the testing of the concept itself. They have done around 250 different engine tests based on 13 different printing processes. With something like this, it was important to determine which processes would work best, etc. The founders also had a huge learning curve to go through. Given their educational and career backgrounds, of course, both of them had a more than good understanding of physics and the science behind it. But when you are trying to do something that has never been done before, things can definitely start to get a little complicated. Even coming up with the world's largest 3D printer was no easy task, as they bound themselves with a 3-month deadline. So the sheer amount of testing alone took the company a good few years before they could say definitively that 3D printing works for rockets as well. But now that they have the data to back up everything, and they actually know that something like this can be done with utmost safety, all that is left is scaling. Tim Ellis says that this is exactly how the goal of the company has shifted over the last couple of years. For the past couple of years, everything has revolved around expansion. They went from about 14 employees to about 135 within a year or so. Money was raised because, understandably, something of this magnitude requires absolutely huge investments. The company has already managed to raise around $1.3 billion in venture backing. In fact, the ongoing round has an approximate valuation of $4.2 billion. This is just the amount of money that could allow Relativity Space to enter the big leagues. They may not have expanded into every possible aspect of space, but their ambitions are high. There are many companies out there that are actually keeping a goal of space travel in mind, and Relativity Space is one of them. Given the right number of investments, this company could just as well skyrocket in valuation in the future. The first iteration of the company's rocket was Terran 1, and it is progressing towards smaller payloads while also competing with rideshare missions on bigger rockets. Launch vehicles such as the Rocket Lab's Electron are also one of the goals. The very first test flight of this rocket is set for the end of 2021. There will be a number of commercial launches shortly after the test launch. Now that would be the real big thing, as it is going to allow the common person to get on board. Relativity Space has already seen a huge demand for its rocket launches. Suffice to say, we are basically not taking any more pre-orders for Terran 1, Ellis says. We have several years already covered. According to Ellis, the Terran R is even more ambitious. It is a 2-stage rocket that stands at 216 feet in length. It is also made from custom aluminum alloys made for 3D printing, and its aerodynamic structures were algorithmically generated. This means that these rockets could only be technically manufactured through 3D printing. They are also designed to be fully reusable, which is another amazing characteristic. The first stage lands completely separately from the second and payload fairing, which will land as a single unit. The company fully intends to carefully test the reusability of its stages during the commercial launch, right in the footsteps of SpaceX. That will be all from this one, folks. If you liked the content, please consider subscribing to our channel. Let us know your thoughts by leaving a comment down below as well. See you soon in the next video. Till then, take care.